So as you know, who here has ridden an Uber or a Lyft? Okay, everybody. Who here has sent a FedEx package or a UPS package? Right. So there's age-old services delivery automation that's been occurring for 30 or 40 years. FedEx and UPS are a great example of that. People give Uber the credit for it and call it the Uberification of everything, but it's not new. FedEx did a great job of it, and I think you might remember some old advertising from FedEx in the 80s where they talked about how if they missed a package delivery, they'd be the ones that would charter the $30,000 jet and get that package delivered on time anyway. And I think that really embodies the sentiment of services on demand. The companies that are doing it well and doing it right take the burden of services disposition off the shoulders of, say, professional property managers and bear that burden themselves. So in our case, we mow lawns. We've mowed about 500,000 lawns in 4,900 cities across the country. And so we're very good at it. We're specialized, and so when people hire us to mow lawns, whether it's one lawn or in some cases we've got portfolios of 30 or 40,000 lawns that we take care of. And when they hand us these portfolios or one lawn, we just make sure that it happens. And because we're such a big provider of services, we can do it at a price that's economically better than what you get by managing your contractors directly. So imagine just a magic button, kind of like the FedEx solution. You push the button and magically lawns get mowed. My kids like to joke around about how we're mowing lawns with satellites and lasers. I wish that was the case. We're working on it. We are actually working on a robotic solution, so that's going to be interesting. One day we'll mow lawns with robots through a partnership we have with one of the largest manufacturers of lawn mowing equipment in the world. But it's a fun industry. What you really want to deal with as a professional property management group is fraud and accountability when you're dispositioning services. So I myself own about 89 units of rental property, which is hard. As you know, as property managers, it's really, really hard. Anything that can go wrong does go wrong. And one of my properties is in St. George, and I know I've always had the tenant be responsible for mowing the lawn. And every time, and it doesn't happen very often, but once every 3 or 4 years, my tenant vacates. And I get this pit in my stomach because I'm just thinking, oh no, like I don't know any lawn care providers in St. George because I haven't been working with one property down there. It's not like I've got dozens. And so I get this pit in my stomach because I know that it's going to involve a 4.5-hour drive to St. George. Like there's just no way around it. I'm going to have to drive down there, interview contractors, figure out which ones can do the work. And if I don't make the drive to St. George, then what happens is what has happened to me in the past where I suddenly start getting HOA violations because the lawn hasn't been mowed, even though I'm paying the bill, because there's no accountability or no auditability for that work. Well, TaskEasy, we set out to solve that problem through things like we manage a network of 5,000 contractors, and whenever they perform the work, they're required, we geofence them, so we know they've been on site at the time they said they were on site. We make them take photographs of the work, so now there's evidence not just that the lawn was performed, but I learned lots of things from these photos. I learned that there's a sofa sitting on the front lawn because the tenant that just moved out thought that I was responsible for the disposal of their excess furniture. And you've all been there, right? You know how this works out. But because now I have a photograph of that, I know that I need to go deal with it quickly instead of weeks going by or until I get an HOA or city and county ordinance violation. So really, true services disposition and true services automation is about accountability, auditability, price control, and the taking on the full burden of that services management on your behalf. And that's what we do. I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has one or two, and then I think I'm off stage for your important panel discussion. So any quick questions?
Is it just lawns?
We do lawns in the summer and snow clearing in the winter. And
from the desert, so we don't have lawns.
So we also do desertscaping, which includes weed control. We manage thousands of properties in Phoenix and Tulsa, I believe. So quite a bit of work done in that area. Oh, and there's some adjacent services that, of course, we perform, like fertilization and sprinkler turn on and turn off, aeration, gutter cleaning. Gutter cleaning is a big one for us right now. There's a lot of gutter cleaning going on. So, any other questions? Yeah.
It seems like your type of industry, which you're focusing on, can really be broadened out
It could be, and you know, it's funny because we set out to originally solve maybe 20 or 30 different services, and what we realized is that it's hard. It's really hard to be good at one thing, and we've spent nearly $20 million developing lawn mowing as a solution, which seems like a lot of money. I mean, it really does, but we do very clever things in terms of exceptions management. We make sure that every lawn gets mowed. We have a team of nearly 150 call center representatives that deal with all the crazy things that can happen with lawn mowing. And believe it or not, when you're managing a network of 5,000 contractors nationwide, every crazy thing that can happen does. And so, you know, someday I'll tell stories about this. I'll probably write a book, but it's hard enough to mow lawns and clear snow. And you know, one day we might get into other services. But I think what we're going to start seeing is, I mean, there's companies. I noticed this Filter Easy back here, which has an interesting namespace collision with ours. But they're probably doing something very similar to us, helping with filter management, which is perfect. We're going to see this over and over and over again in this industry, and maybe one day we see a roll-up. We see these industries start to consolidate. Uber's been proclaiming for years that they're going to get into other services, and every time they say that, I think, oh, good. What are they going to get into next? This is going to be really fascinating. And what they get into next is something that's so close to what they already do, it doesn't even seem like they've gotten into something else. Like they recently added a service where you can now get an Uber that has a has a ski rack, so they can take you to your ski resort. Doesn't really seem like a huge departure from their core service, and that's because every one of these services requires a high degree of specialization and investment in order that you might succeed and do it well. That's good. Well, thanks for letting me take a couple minutes in front of you.